So we really want to hear from you. This is interactive. We've muted the mics just because sometimes we get large groups, but hopefully you can participate in the chat. And when you participate in the chat, you're learning from me, but you're also learning from each other and supporting each other as we go. So let's work together for a great math conversation today. So let's start with, let me just get rid of this here. I think then that gets rid of me for now, and you get to see the beautiful pictures in the PowerPoint. So let's just start with taking a look at the picture that's here. And do you see any subtraction situations in this picture? And if you see a subtraction situation from the shirts, from the hats, from any type of combination, just type yes into the chat pod. Then we know you've all accessed the chat pod and can use that efficiently.
All right, Kim, the yeses are flying in. Everybody looks like they've got it, and everybody's set to all panelists and attendees, so that's great.
Perfect. So as I start talking a little bit about this, keep in mind the subtraction situation you saw. So did you see a takeaway situation? So in other words, was the one that you saw something like how many fans left in the stands once 4 people leave? Did you see another takeaway situation, kind of like how many fans are not wearing red shirts? Did you see a compare situation? Something like how many more fans are wearing blue shirts compared to red shirts? Or another type of compare situation, how many fewer females than males? So just keep that in mind as we go through. We are going to be working through the idea of subtraction and the things children think about as they come into kindergarten and move through the primary grades. And we know that, you know, addition is so related to subtraction, sometimes it's difficult to separate them out. And so even though we're focusing on subtraction, we'll see how addition kind of rolls in through there as we go through. So we will work through some of the content and thinking through this learning progression. And then we'll take a look into Mathology.ca and think about what are the resources that we can use today in our situations to help us with our students. So we're going to follow through using the learning progression, and the learning progression really is a step-by-step look at the stages of knowledge and skills that a learner goes through in developing competence in mathematics. It's organized by strands and big ideas, and I'm going to show you how they're laid out on the next screen. And it was developed by Lynn McGarvey out U of A. And what she did is she synthesized a lot of the research and the curriculums to come up with a simple learning progression that gives us the nuggets we need as educators to help our students move along this learning progression of mathematics. So today we're going to be taking a look at the idea, one of the 13 big ideas in the learning progression. And this is about how quantities and numbers can be added and subtracted to determine how many or how much. And when we look at one of the threads, one of the conceptual threads within that big idea, it really is about developing conceptual meaning of addition and subtraction. And so we're going to take a look at this conceptual thread from kindergarten to grade 3 with that focus on subtraction today. And so let's take a look at this photo and take a look at Scott. He's in one of the stories, and he has to fill some blueberries and raspberries for some customers. And so we're going to think about how might Scott fill the order for the blueberries and strawberries. So he's starting to fill the order. He knows he has 5 blueberries, and he knows he has to actually fill it to make 10. So he's wondering how many of the other berries does he actually need? And so we can use a 10 frame to model this. So we're going to think about, well, how do 10 frames really help us model these take to and take from situations? which is really at the beginning of that learning progression as kindergarten students come in, that they're starting to model the add to and take from situations, especially starting with 5 and then moving on to 10. And so, for example, do your students think about adding on to make the total? So they have 5 and they're going to add one at a time to make the total. So they have 5 plus something equals 10. Or might your students start with the whole and take away the part, knowing that they've got to have 10 berries, they've got 5 blueberries, and now they're thinking about how many are left for raspberries. So they start with the whole and they take off the ones they know, and the 5 left are the ones they need to know. And so with these resources, they accompany line masters to support and extend the learning. And the line masters can be printed off if we're thinking about at-home use. They can even be shown on a screen and quickly made with little scraps of paper. They don't have to be pictures of berries. They can be red circles, blue circles, anything like that. And even in terms of the types of problems and working through problem solving, they can be shown on screen, or they can be printed out, they can be downloaded, they can be then uploaded into any learning system. And I'm going to show you in a bit kind of a little bit more about that on Mathology.ca. And these resources are also available in French. And so the little books are kindergarten to grade 3, and this is a grade 1 book. And so it has the same resources, and they're in French this time. And so these books are adapted for French, not translated, and they are available on Mathology.ca for grade 1 currently, in terms of the activities. So let's take a look, a few minutes, and explore some subtraction situations. So let's say you have $20, and this is a grade 2 activity. Let's say you have $20, and if you could buy only one item, what would you buy and how much money would you have left? So just in the chat pod, if you could just type in, what is it that you would buy? If you had $20 and you could buy one item, what would you pick to buy?
Oh, we've got lots of people really interested in the loom and puzzles. I'm imagining that you want something that you can spend a little bit of time on at home. We've got the teddy bear, some blocks for building. I know there's that Lego challenge out there right now, so that might be really helpful. And more puzzles. Awesome.
That's great. And so if you bought that, what would your subtraction situation be? So you have $20 and you bought that.
I'm seeing a lot of subtraction sentences. 20 subtract 8 is 12. 20 subtract 17 is 3.
So starting with the whole and taking away the price.
Ooh, we've got somebody who's counting up from 14 up to 20.
So
Got some
representing it,
adding on situations. Awesome.
yeah. So even though it's a subtraction situation, sometimes our students will actually use addition to figure it out. And so that's why sometimes it's helpful just calling them a subtraction situation, because then children are free to figure out how best they and how efficiently they can work through that. So let's take a look at something of how students might use part whole math. So for a lot of you, you started with the whole. You started with 20 and you took away a part of it. This is an example of a train. And then the question might be, 20, which is the whole takeaway 16, is something, or 16 plus the other part, which we don't know, is equal to 20. And so we see how directly related the subtraction and the addition are in these type of subtraction situations. And so this is where students really start to use symbols and equations to represent addition and subtraction situations. And so let's take a look at using line masters or other things to extend the learning. So on the actual card, what you just saw was the student card or the student facing card, and that would be in front of them. And this is the actual activity that's on the teacher card. So what I'd like you to do is just skim that activity and think about what other questions might you ask? In today's schooling, they're not going to necessarily have their partner friend. It might be a different situation. But are there some other questions that you might be able to ask given this type of a situation? And along with the teaching card comes line masters and thinking about other things to do. So here's a simple activity where they're given $20. They look at the card. What item would you buy? How much would you have left? Here's some other line masters and some coin money. What other opportunities creatively could you think about using these resources here? And we'll just take a minute and pop your ideas in the chat pod in terms of what other opportunities would you provide given these resources for students and for parents to help students? So we've got Keely with an idea. If you could purchase something for your neighbor to brighten their day, what would you buy? That's great.
Oh, that's another great way to change it up, make your kitchen into a store. That's what you've been doing at home. That's a great idea. They've got probably lots of different things around the house that they could turn into a store. So that's a great idea.
That's great. Lots of great ideas. So I hope that you're thinking about your own ideas, but you're also getting ideas from others as they put them in the chat pod and thinking about your own situation and how you might use this information. And so when we look at the actual card, these are in print, but they're also on Mathology.ca. We call the front of the card the teaching part, and the back of the card is the actual assessment part. And then it comes with teacher cards or student cards that have differentiation built right in them. We looked at the little yellow card that they're on the bottom, but the blue one shows that the numbers are a little bit sometimes easier to work with, or there's less on the page for the students to deal with. And when we look at the lesson, it has a lot of supports to actually support teaching. I know it's kind of small there, but just take a quick look in terms of the structure and the types of stuff that's available for support for teaching. And is there something in there you're thinking, oh yeah, this will really help me um, in my teaching? If you like the idea that the assessment is there, and the assessment works like the learning progression, it starts at the left and goes to the right in terms of moving kids along that progression. If you like the differentiation of the cards, just type that in. If you like the materials, put that in.
So we're seeing here the what to look for and next steps. Differentiation would be good for split grades as well. I'm sure you see the combined grades in the bottom left corner. Being able to see the behaviors and strategies, it's easy to follow sort of layout. Did anyone notice the probing questions at the bottom? That might be even helpful for parents when they're sitting with some of their children at home.
Yeah, some of them might be helpful just to as like little tidbits of information or just some guiding help. Sometimes that's all that's needed as we go along. So let's take a look at moving forward in terms of comparing and modeling. If we take a look at this picture, this is from a grade 3 book, and take a look at the difference between the wind speed from the morning to the sunset, we can see there's different ways to model or to make these subtraction situations. Sometimes the actual thinking is subtracting, but sometimes the actual way students might go through it is addition. And this is where something like number lines can come in really handy for students as they model the idea of difference. The difference between the sunset and the morning on the number line is a nice way for students to actually start representing their thinking. And so this is as we move further along that learning progression and how students model and symbolize addition and subtraction problem types. And they start relating addition and subtraction as inverse operations. So again, there's some line masters to accommodate and extend the learning. Anything from 100 chart to modeling situations to thinking about although they are problem solving as they're doing those things, but now putting it into a contextual type of thing where they have to think about the context and how that plays out in the mathematics. And so let's take a look at this one. This is from a grade 3 book. Again, do you think about any addition and subtraction situations or problems? And so this time in the chat pod, if you could put what addition subtraction problems do you see? What is the context of it? Is the context about the balloons? Is the context about something else in that picture? But as soon as you picture a type of a subtraction situation, if you could just put that into the chat pod, that would be great.
So we've got people thinking about inverse operations and comparing the scores of the teams. Oh, sharing the money. So we've got total money received and cost of the party. Maybe we're making giving some of the money to the hospital.
Great. And so this is where we can really help students consolidate those ideas of those inverse operations and some other concepts. The commutativity of addition, obviously not a kid word, but as adults, it really pinpoints this concept in mathematics. When there is no commutativity in subtraction, so the example of when you have 990 minus 700, there's the donation, but you can't turn that around. It doesn't even make any sense. Or the inverse operations, as we've had someone, Gail was talking about earlier, that it doesn't matter. which way it goes, you're going to come out with the same situation. Or when we take a look at the learning progression, this moves them even further along and thinks about how they use the properties of addition and subtraction to actually solve the problems. So when we take a look at the learning progression, we see from the left to the right, from kindergarten to grade 3, there's resources in Mathology, whether it's print or in Mathology.ca, that help students along this learning progression in a way that is just fun and really enjoyable. So we've seen how the books help do that, and we've seen how some of the teaching cards help do that, and how some of the multi-use cards like 10 frames or part whole or a number line actually help students model these situations. So what we'll do now is take just a few minutes and take a look at Mathology.ca and take a look at how these ideas of moving students along a continuum actually are housed in here. And as we go through, I'm just going to kind of minimize that for a minute so I can pull up this. So as we go through it, again, think about your students and think about your context now. Each educator across Canada is in very different situations. And please feel free as I go through and show you some of these things, pop in the chat pod something you see that's going to be helpful for you. If I show something, oh, this is going to be helpful for such and such, because someone else that's on this webinar might not have thought about that. And so we can help each other along the way today.
Absolutely. And while we're helping each other, I'm just going to remind you, Kim, that I forgot to repin the lessons that you were going to use today. So when you're going in and looking for them, they're not on your front page today. So you're going to be looking in for that's 10 and spending money. So we'll use that
Okay.
a reminder for you. Sorry about that.
I will try to go through. So when we think about Mathology.ca, it really is aligned with 5 functions: searching, teaching, planning, assessing, and professional learning. And so we're going to take a look at each of those 5 functions to see how do they work together to support our young learners along or learning some exciting math stuff. So when you come to the home page, it's a simple press in, and this is the page that appears in front of you. And you can search by just by putting in a keyword. And so we might come back to some of the cards early. Oops, bump me out here. We might come back to cards a couple of times. Okay, so we were working on money. And so I'm just going to search by a keyword, money, first. And so we come up to this screen that has some really nice ways for us to sift through things. So I'm going to say I'm a grade 2 teacher. I just kind of want to search all the activities. I just want to look at number. And so basically for grade 2 number, 20 results have come up, and we see that the one card that we were working on, the toy store, is actually there. But as we look through, there's other cards that are there and other activities, and also some books that will help integrate some of that learning for our grade 2. So that's a lot of stuff that comes up for money. And so if I wanted to search a little bit more precisely, I can search by curriculum. And so I am going to go just to grade 2. And we were working with money. So what's showing here is Ontario, because I'm in Ontario. Whatever province you're in, those curriculum expectations will come up. And whatever province is working towards new curriculums, they can be tagged really, really quickly to new curriculum, because as we've seen, it's built on a learning, on the learning progression. And so the curriculum expectations just are tagged to different aspects along there. So if I take a look at money, there's my overall, here's my specifics, represent, compare, whole numbers. And that's not the money one, but I just picked the first one to show that all of these activities would follow along that specific expectation. And we know that many of the things that are here, it's not just one specific expectation. These will come up again and again for other things that are searched. So we can search by keyword, we can search by curriculum, or we can search by learning progression. So this is the sheet that we looked through in the webinar, only now it's laid out in a different way. And so we've got quantities and numbers can be added and subtracted. That was the part that we were looking at. And we were developing conceptual meaning of addition and subtraction. So it's, oh, I just moved it too fast to the left there. 1, 2, 3, here we go. So we took a look at how modeling add to and take 10 situations from 10 with Scott and the berries. And then we moved all the way to the end where they're using properties of addition and subtraction. And so we see that this is grade 2. So anything with the green button would be within the grade 2 band and be able to use for that. So we've got 3 ways to search. And so searching is a variety of ways, but you can always find something you want. So then let's say we have, I'm going to go back to, oh, let's go to, I don't know if that will come up, our book. There we go. I knew the name of the book, so I put that in. So this is the book that we were looking at, and each book follows the same structure. It has a little bit about the book. It has the math focus, the curriculum. Again, it will come up with whatever province you're in. This says Ontario. It has the processes or competencies, and again, the learning progression and where on the learning progression the ideas in this book fall. So then we can go to the next tab and it's details. So there's the book there. Give some ideas of what to do with the book, introducing the book, and then related resources. So this is where all the line masters are found. And so things like 10 frames are there, the berry game, berry cards that we showed are there. So again, these can be, because they're PDF, they can be downloaded onto your computer and then uploaded into any system you have, or they're actually available in Word. So you can download them and manipulate them in any way that you'd like. So in the details, I can go into the little book and it has a read and listen function. So it can be read to.
There is a sale on berries. Blueberries and raspberries are today's special. Scott's first.
And so it can be read to. And then there's a couple other features that are really great with this little book. It has an online activity that can be worked through in terms of manipulatives, can be loaded in 1 at a time, can be loaded in 5 at a time. Lots of different ways of playing with these online manipulatives, and the directions are there. And there's a little note for teachers and parents to know a little bit more about this online activity. And so teachers can access the books through Mathology.ca, and I'm just going to go back there again. There's this little blue line on the top that you'll see. Mathology is a teacher tool, and the little books are there for the parents. So if you're working with a little book, parents can also have access to that by linking on here and Mathology little books. And 2 new books for every grade will be loaded every week. So we're up to 4. Tomorrow, I think 2 more are being loaded in. So the book is actually there. And also there is a parent information letter where there's simple, real at-home activities that were designed for at home to help consolidate some of the ideas that are in the book that's there. And they have access to the book too. They just click on that link and they have access to reading and looking at the same book that you might be using in Mathology.ca. So we have the little book, and then related resources are all there with some additional resources at the bottom. So that's the type of thing that is found with a book. If we take a look at the card that we looked at, it has some of the similar features. It has about and details, and I'm going to go through a little bit more about the assessment and a few other things that are with it. So again, it has about the lesson, curriculum, learning progression. It has details. So this is exactly like the print card, only now it's on the screen. It has the things that you liked. It has the activities, you liked the differentiation that's there. It has the probing questions. It has the line masters that are right up at the top. And I'll just pull up a PDF that are right there. These can be downloaded as a PDF, again, and uploaded into anything you're using or into a Word. And then on the bottom, it'll have related resources. So it's got the student cards, it's got the multi-use cards, the differentiation cards, and even the assessment piece. So again, this is a more fine tune of the learning progression, moving from left to right. And again, this, if anything can be printed, it could also be saved as a PDF. So as soon as you print that print button, you can always stop in the middle and save it as a PDF and use it that way. And so each card also has an assessment feature. This, we've just loaded some example students up, but this is exactly what we call the back of the card, or that learning progression, where you can just drag and drop your students in, and it will keep track of where your students are in terms of that idea along that learning progression. And then related resources. It's got mini lessons, it's got extensions, there's ideas of possible misconceptions, and they also have next steps in class and next steps at home. So here's even more activities that are really meant for at home, where parents can easily understand the task and work very confidently with their own children. So we've taken a look at search and we've taken a look at teach. When we think about planning, we can come up to the top and there's a planning tool. And when I click on all plans, just disregard this first thing that I scroll through, because this is a demo site that we use, but there's sample plans that are here. There are long range plans, and there's 3 for each of the grades. And if you scroll to the bottom or near the bottom, each grade we've just added in a purposeful practice plan. So this is a short, about 6 week, 1, 2, 3, 4, yes, about 6 weeks, 6 to 7 weeks of learning that kind of goes back to some important concepts over the year to help reinforce. And so this is where we're recommending maybe people start if they're new to Mathology.ca and they're using it currently now with their families at home, that it has some important concepts that are easy to find without necessarily going through the whole year plan. And so in a week, there's usually a book, there's some activities, and then that's the week, and then going to another week. But at any time, these can be clicked on and moved to. You can take them out. You can add new plans. And so if I want to use the sample plan, I just say use sample plan. I'm going to call it Kim's plan. And so once I save it, then I can move things around. I'm not going to delete things now because this is in there. But if I wanted to, I could just delete, I didn't want that book, so I'm going to delete it from my plan, or I can take something out, or I can add something in from my favorites by simply, oh, operational fluency. I think by the end of this week, I do want the kids working a little bit more practicing fluency. So I'm going to put that right near the end of the week and pop that in. And so that is there. It's very easy to use as is as a plan, or it's very easy to change if you want to change it. And the last thing, one of the last things, so we've looked at search, teach, plan. There's also an analytics where you can now take a look at, maybe we haven't put anything in here. There we go. It takes a look at your class as a whole. And so this is all the activities that this demo class has actually done. And it shows that of the students I've looked at, these are kind of like the yellow or the caution type of button that, I might need to look at this concept again with some students. But on these activities, the students I looked at, they're really on track. They're green, they're ready to go. And there's actually a red, but maybe we don't have anybody in red right now. So that's the class. And you can also get a student view of a student, of any activities that have been assessed, and there's the student. So we've got search, we've got plan, we've got teach, you've got opportunities for assessment. And then I'm gonna go just take a look at money one more time. And take a look at professional learning. So each activity card has a learning highlight video that helps us see what some of the student thinking might be. And these are short, so I'm going to play this one just for you. They're usually about a minute.
What item could I purchase with $20? No matter what I choose, I will have less money left in savings. So, if I want to spend the least amount possible, I will choose the book. How can I pay for the book? I can pay with a $5 bill, and I will get $2 in change. Or pay with a $10 bill and get $7 in change. Or I could pay with a loonie and a toonie and get no change. How can I find how much money I have left in savings? I can count what's left. I can count back from 20, 19, 18, 17. I can subtract. 20 minus 3 is 17. To consolidate, have students create their own items to sell at the toy store and label each item with a price less than $20. Which two items could students buy with their savings?
And so I see that there are some questions that are in the chat pod. We've taken a look at kind of what's here for teachers. As it was built, obviously it's built for face-to-face learning. This is a teaching planning tool. It's not a student front virtual tool. And so teachers are starting to figure out how they might adapt something. So Miranda, is there anything that we need to address right now?
I'm hoping I got to everyone's questions. If not, please feel free to repaste it, and I'll try and answer it as best I can. And we're gonna go just revisit some of those sites right now that you can provide for parents and for students, as well as other additional support for yourself as teachers or even parents.
Yeah. So the idea of the teacher card really is to take a look at the teacher card and think about how might I adapt it. So in the purposeful practice for grade 1 and 2 in those plans, those activities have been looked at somewhat in terms of the line masters. Are they really useful for parents? Can the activities be fairly easily adapted? So that's why I said to take a look at that plan first. That might give you a little bit more success in terms of the types of adaptations you might want to make. And anything that can be downloaded or anything that can be printed with that little green button, you can save that as a PDF and put it up into your Google Classroom. And even in terms of the planning, the one thing I didn't mention was any lessons you have in Google Classroom, you can upload into this planning tool also and put it part of your week. So it can work that way too. So within the Mathology.ca platform, this is what's actually in there. In grade 1, those are the lessons. Grade 2, there's 185 plus lessons. For kindergarten to grade 1, there's 34 Mathology little books and the learning progression, and 100 plus learning videos that are learning highlight videos. And then there's also videos on the learning progression itself for you as an educator to learn more about how to use the resources along that continuum. And so, Miranda, you'll let me know if we need to answer any quick questions. So when we look at the Mathology or Mathology en français platform, we have the bottom line is the learning progression. It's the professional learning resources like Alec Lawson's What to Look For, like Kathy Marks-Krapant's Teaching Math with Meaning. We have implementation support, of which this webinar is part of it, but part of my job is to support districts and schools when they come on to Mathology and Mathology.ca with some implementation supports. And we can see how the Math Little Books, the activity kits, and .ca kind of all work together. And so coming in August is very exciting, is grade 3. That these grade 3 activities have all been classroom tested. They've been classroom tested to encourage student engagement, and we were all part of going into the classrooms and seeing some of that great engagement with students, that it does address diversity in math. The teachers have found that it really does remove some of the time constraints in planning, because you don't have to search all over the place. You're searching in a smaller pot of things for the things that you need for your students. And they're all developmentally appropriate math lessons. It addresses all the curriculum expectations effectively and efficiently. And the activities that are coming up for grade 3, any grade, but I've seen the ones new for grade 3, they really do encourage a growth mindset in mathematics. And so the teacher tool is in Mathology.ca. They are the lessons. There is a print activity kit that has student-facing cards. There is the Math Little Books to use, and then the Math Mats, which are wipeable. So they're laminated to use with whiteboard markers for use over and over again. And so Mathology.ca is the center of the grade 3. It has all the searching and planning and teaching and assessment tools. It has grade 3 has 18 fiction and nonfiction math little books. You'll have the activity kit with engaging student activities and games, and then the math mats that really encourage that growth mindset, because there really are no mistakes. Kids can take risks and redo as much as they need. And so this is just a quick slide on the actual price. Right now, there is an open access till the end of June. And then after that, it may change. Again, we're trying to be flexible with what teachers need. And for teachers, anyone can register for that 90-day open access. And so you can get to that through pearsonmathology.ca. It gets you that access. It's very quick. We've had many new teachers come on in the last couple of weeks. And you can also register for more webinars. Our next webinar will be on, we'll have another overview, but there's also going to be a content one on fluency. So we'll do that in the next couple of weeks. And so when you go to that website, Mathology.ca, you'll see that there are some resources helpful. And the one resource that's really great to start with is the curriculum correlations. It has all the correlations to all the provinces, where it lists the expectations and then the little books and the activity cards that are side by side. So if you just want to work on your own curriculum and think about where you are, you can just find the activities you need that way. And then the pearsoncanada.ca at home is where you will find the math little books for parents. They can just click on that and then they have access to those at home. And so that they can take a look at the book, they can take a look at the parent letter, and they have access to the online learning tool. So I know we're coming close to our time at the end, and so we really appreciate your feedback. I don't know if Miranda, I don't know if you can copy and paste this, or I have to copy and paste this.
Already done.
Okay. It's really helpful for us to give great experiences to your colleagues. So that's one gift that you could give to us, through us, to your colleagues, that what was helpful in this webinar or what you would have liked to see, especially in this situation. If we can keep information flowing, we can provide the best possible service we can to teachers across Canada. So it only takes 2 minutes to go in and just do that. And you can be doing that as we finish up. We're going to come to a couple more slides to finish up today. And so if you want more information, these are the who to contact for more information. If you take a look at your board or your province where you're at and take a note of that email contact, they can direct you and find whatever you need next, and then funnel that information to whoever needs it. So I just really want to take this time to thank you for spending your time. I know that it's a difficult time for parents, for everybody, to find time for themselves, for their own learning. And so thank you for taking this time out of your day to learn a little bit about math and early math and supporting young students. And so we're going to stay on for about another 5-10 minutes. If you've got any further questions, just pop them in the chat pod. And if not, have a great evening and great fun with your children and with your children if you are teaching young children.